Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Creatures Features, the show where we discuss the strangest creatures in mythology, cryptozoology, and pop culture. My name is Jackie, your monstrologist for the day, and this is Aaron, who will be learning about our creature right alongside all of you. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Ready to hear about this creature.
Yeah. So, do you recall the hints that I gave you?
It was why did the chicken cross the road, right?
Yeah, it's not a fantastic hint, but I felt like I deserved at least one not fantastic hint after the Michigan Dogman hint.
Well, honestly, my two thoughts on the monster were either going to be that it was like a basilisk or a cockatrice and the chicken was like handing off an egg, or that it was Fozzie Bear from the Muppets.
The elusive Fozzie Bear cryptid. Ah, yes. Well, not quite. Instead, this week, something that I'm going to hesitate to call a creature and more of an entity. We're going to be talking about one of the world's most famous witches, specifically Baba Yaga.
No, I see.
Yeah. Yep.
Why did the chicken cross the road? Because it was a house.
Yeah, because it was a house on legs that could walk because of a witch. So, of course, Baba Yaga is a very familiar name to many, and is commonly noted as being one of the most recognizable and well-known figures in Eastern European folklore, and is quite a major figure in Slavic folklore as well. So I'm sure you know some things, but just to see where we're at, what do you already know about Baba Yaga?
We have a very old legend about a grandmotherly witch who is usually a cannibal in most myths. I don't think there's really any myths of her cannibalizing anybody, though. I know she's got like a really long nose, and instead of like the typical broomstick, she's on like mortar and pestle.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean that's a pretty good description. But let's get into the specifics of the appearance, and we're gonna preface this entire episode with there are literally hundreds, if not thousands, of versions of Baba Yaga's folklore and myth and legend. So this is going to be a lot of broad strokes. We don't have a lot of like ultra specific stories and things because there are so many versions of her. It's kind of amazing, actually.
So what if it's not just like one Baba Yaga then, and we just have like a Baba Yaga convention?
just a, or if you go with what Owl House called it, a convention, like coven. Little throwback to a show that I want season 2 to start sooner than later. But anyway, so as you said, and you were completely correct, Baba Yaga is commonly described as a very, very old woman, typically living in the woods, and is seen most of the time as a monster who kills and eats children. Though I do believe that you are correct, at least from the things I read. I'm sure that some of those stories exist out there. There is not a lot of like detailed, and then she eats a child. Like, it's just like, oh, she eats children, but nobody ever like, you don't get those stories, apparently. It's just like her.
Oh yeah,
you know,
Jason down the street, he shoots people all the time. I mean, yeah. I've never seen it happen, but exactly, he does it.
However, there are, interestingly enough, stories where she acts as a guide to people, and we'll touch on some of the examples of that. Interestingly, and I've not heard this before, what she is referred to can vary. The word witch is almost always there, but I found a source that referred to specifically as an ogress. Some things called her a forest spirit, and sort of an entity like that. So there's a variety of ways to refer to her. She's not a person. She's not a human, at the very least, I assume. But she seems to take on the appearance of just an old woman. Okay. And then, as you correctly also pointed, and I have a quote here from Britannica.com, quote, Baba Yaga can ride through the air in an iron kettle or in a mortar that she drives with a pestle. So as you did point out, her mode of transportation is being in a pot or a mortar, and zooming around through the air instead of a broomstick.
Well, I mean, most people want to go with the broomstick, because it's thinner, it's like more aerodynamic. Maybe she's like ditching the hot rod approach and just going with a sweet minivan,
Yeah, well, I mean, also, like, you could duck down into a kettle or a mortar and pestle and hide, if people are trying to shoot arrows at you or something. So I get it. True. There's function to it. Yeah. You sacrifice some speed for defense, and that's a choice we've all made in video games at one time or another.
Tank build, man. Tank build.
Exactly. Now, of course, famously, as I referred to with my hint for the day, her house is widely described as a cabin with chicken legs sprouting from the base that walks on its own accord. And that does indeed sound like something out of a fantasy, but there might actually be a real historical inspiration for this house, which I found extremely interesting, and we'll get around to it later, so make sure you stay tuned for it.
History is always fun when it can actually inspire mythology,
know.
So
I absolutely love it. Yeah, we'll get to it, don't worry. Now let's touch on her personality, because this is a huge variety. But I want to go ahead and quote from New World Encyclopedia, and as per usual, all these sources will be credited down in the description under wherever you are watching or listening. But she is described as, quote, Baba Yaga can also be a source of guidance when approached correctly. When Baba Yaga is approached without good preparation, sincerity, and due respect, she is dangerous. Only by maintaining pure heart and faith, proper respect for her as one's elder, and loving care of her creatures can the encounter be successful. End quote. So I found that interesting because you don't get a lot of hearing about her as a guide, but also she's like, if you mess it up, you're in trouble.
Yeah, I know one story, I think, at least one that I kind of vaguely remember, where Baba Yaga is like a helpful character.
Yeah. And interestingly enough, a lot of the stories where she is more helpful, Baba Yaga is referred to as actually a trio of sisters. All of them named Baba Yaga. But there's 3 of them, so it's like an Officer Jenny situation, I guess. They all look the same, have the same name, but they're sisters. I don't know.
It's just coincidence that we are all the exact same in a region known for cloning.
That's not weird at all. So what are your thoughts so far, as we've got this kind of mishmash of details and appearances and personalities?
Well, I know that characters like Baba Yaga can get really muddied over time. Mm-hmm. It's kind of like the same sort of thing that happened to Loki in Norse mythology, where he kind of started as more of a, I'll occasionally trick my family sort of guy, and then eventually just became like this antichrist sort of analog.
Yeah, exactly. It is interesting, yeah. And I always find interesting parallels between cultures with similar characters or similar stories that start to interweave. It's a very interesting point. So, now touching on her origins, as we like to do. They're numerous. Versions of her exist in a lot of different Slavic regions, including Polish versions of her, Czech versions, and Slavic versions, and all those different cultures. Russia, Bulgaria, the Ukraine also all have their own versions. So it's a tangled mess that all exists throughout that region in Eastern Europe. I do want to break down actually the meaning behind her name, because I found that very interesting, just from a little factoid point. But Baba Yaga is actually comprised of 2 elements. Out of curiosity, do you know what the 2 elements of her name are?
I know one of the elements is grandma. I don't remember what the other one is.
All right. Well, you are exactly correct. Baba is a shortened form of the word babushka, which typically means grandmother. So it's sort of like how you'd have versions. We don't say grandmother. Typically in English, we have grandma, gam, whatever other word you might have regionally in English. It's sort of like the shortened form for babushka.
So the opposite of what I do with my own grandmother, where it's...
exactly.
Instead of abuela, where it's nice and smooth and small, I have to add abuelita.
Exactly, yeah. Just a different way to say and mean the same thing. Now, the other half, the Yaga part of it, I found a couple different sources that said a couple different things. So we'll cover them both, because I'm not honestly sure which one is accurate. Some sources noted as actually being a simplified form of a Slavic name that I'm not going to try and pronounce, but it was basically a nickname for those names. So there's that half. Others note that it has roots in various Slavic languages, with a lot of different meanings, such as witch, dryad, evil woman, disease, doubt, pain, and a whole lot more. There was probably like a 20-word list, and I just kind of picked the ones that really stood out. So there's a duality there of either being like a name or also like a bunch of random words, maybe both. I'm really not honestly sure. But
I kind of love the idea of just calling her Disease Grandma.
That is, yeah, that's kind of amazing. Or just evil woman. Like, that's, you know, of course you have to approach her carefully when her name's an insult. So, as far as stories go, I do actually think we can make an entire series about stories related to Baba Yaga and folklore. And because we're only going to do this one, I cannot, from what I can tell, find a, like, origin tale for her. Like, when we talked about the Fukutushi Onna, there was, like, the core central version of the story that branched out. There are literally thousands of versions of Baba Yaga's tale. Or just tales where she appears as a character. So we're just going to kind of cover a swath of the type of stories instead.
Sounds good. And if you guys maybe want to hear more stories from, like, certain characters, let us know and maybe we can do something like that.
Yeah, exactly. See, like, follow-ups on certain things and get into the more details instead of just kind of broad strokes. But as far as our witchy friend Baba Yaga here, there are stories where people go to her for advice and help, as I mentioned. And as long as those people are polite and proper and do all the things that I mentioned earlier on, you know, call her by a proper name, respect her as an elder, she actually might aid them. Again, sometimes in the stories, there are 3 Baba Yaga sisters. Typically, in this case, the hero of the story will move between the 3, asking each the same question, as I have found extremely common with a lot of folklore stories. Where you'll have the first person you go to, and then they move you to the second, and they move to the third, and then something happens at the third. I want to think of another example other than 3 Little Pigs, but that's the first thing that comes to mind.
See, the first thing that came to my mind was the 3 Billy Goats Gruff.
Okay, yeah, there's another example. It's common, I feel like, for folklore and fairy tales.
At least with European folklore, I know it is.
Exactly, yes. As many of our fairy tales are based around, like, German folklore and European fairy tales, so. We do have other stories, more specifically, like a tale called Vasilisa. I believe I'm saying that right, maybe. Vasilisa the Beautiful shows our titular character, sent on an errand to Baba Yaga, who subsequently enslaves her, and I believe is planning to eat her, as you do when you're a cannibal witch living in the woods. She is then very kind to the animal servants of Baba Yaga, which I believe included things like a wolf, a fence was listed, and I don't know why. And it was kind of just like a list of animals, like an owl, a rat, a wolf, a fence. And I was like, one of these things is not like the other.
Hey, listen, I go to the zoo and I stare at fences.
You know what? That's fair. And they deserve some attention too. And I think we can agree on that.
I mean, no animal would be held in a zoo if it were not for fence.
It's true.
Respect.
The fences, yeah, they do their job. They deserve respect. But Vasilisa is freed by the animal servants that she shows respect to and befriends. So in that story, it keeps a similar theme of show respect, you'll get good things out of it, even though Baba Yaga wasn't specifically the one giving the respect in that particular case. There is another story I want to touch on. Let me just get my thing up here. Here it is. All right, so we have one of the tales specifically that I mentioned, the 3 Baba Yagas, all sisters, maybe, or it might be the same lady running from house to house. I really don't know. But we have a story about Ivan, a handsome merchant's son who makes his way to the home of one of the 3 Baba Yagas. I do not know why he comes. There's a line, we'll get to it because I'll read the quote that I have here. But anyway, he comes, he finds a little hut in an open field on chicken legs. He enters it, and he finds Baba Yaga. Specifically, it says Baba Yaga the Boney Legs. I don't know why he's got to point out her legs. That seems kind of rude. She specifically comments on his Russian smell. I don't know what that means.
You smell rather Russian today, sir.
Yeah, I'm not sure. And asks, have you come by your own free will or by compulsion? Which is a common question that I saw referenced a few times that she would ask in many stories. He says, largely of my free will and twice as much by compulsion. Do you know, Baba Yaga, where lies the thrice 10th kingdom? I don't know what that means. I'm sure there's a meaning to it. But she responds, no. Go see my second sister. Maybe she'll know. Fair enough. He walks, he finds another hut, identical to the first one. Another Baba Yaga makes the exact same comments as the first. He asks the same question. She doesn't know either, and says, go see the third one. But notes that if the third Baba Yaga gets angry, she'll want to devour him. So, Baba Yaga number 2 gives our friend Ivan here a little bit of advice and says, take 3 horns from her and ask her permission to blow them. Blow the first one softly, the second one louder, and third still louder. So we have a little bit of fairy tale, do this in this way and you won't die kind of thing.
We do have that, but I also feel like that second Baba Yaga sister was kind of throwing some shade there. I mean,
a little bit.
When you and your sibling are in a fight and you're just like, oh yeah, don't do this around them.
Yeah, they'll go nuts. I'm much more reasonable than my younger sister. I think they get younger progressively. I can't honestly tell. They all look the same, so it's really hard to pick up on.
They all look the same, but the first one was called the Boney Legged.
Yeah, and it doesn't specify that for the others, and I find it really funny to me. So we continue on with Ivan. He walks for a bit more. I can only imagine there's a lot of, scenery descriptions in between. I really don't know. He finds the chicken-legged hut of the youngest of the 3 sisters in another open field. I don't know why she's parking this thing in an open field. That seems kind of obvious, but who knows?
Park it in a volcano, make it hard, difficult to get to.
Come on. Third and youngest Baba Yaga makes the same comment about him smelling Russian. And then it's like, okay, give me a minute. I'm gonna go, sharpen my teeth so I can eat you. Apparently she asks, and is like, hey, give me a second. I gotta, I haven't eaten anything in a while, so I've gotta get my teeth ready. For whatever reason.
Hold on, I gotta sharpen these knives and polish this gun. If you just give me 10.
Yeah, it's not for anything bad, don't worry. So Ivan, of course, taking the advice from the second, asks for 3 horns. She gives them to him for some reason. He blows the first one softly, the second one louder, and the third louder yet. And then a bunch of birds show up and swarm the hut. One of the birds is a firebird, which I can only assume is some type of phoenix. There's a lot of different fiery elemental birds in mythology. The firebird tells Ivan to hop on its back or Baba Yaga will eat him. Fair enough. He does so, and Baba Yaga rushes at him, grabs the firebird by the tail, but the bird manages to fly away, leaving Baba Yaga behind with a fistful of firebird feathers. At the end of all this, I don't think Ivan got what he wanted, and this doesn't sound like anything but a bad day.
Yeah, no, seriously, what happened to this thrice 10th city?
I don't know.
Also, did he just mean the 30th city?
I don't... Thrice 10th kingdom, maybe? I truthfully don't know. I'm sure there is a more... this is kind of a summary of it. I'm sure there's a detailed version of it. But yeah, so that's kind of an example of kind of how one of those stories goes. He didn't seem to get anything out of this.
It sounds like he wasted his day.
He wasted his day. He got to ride on a phoenix, so maybe that's kind of cool. There was something that came from it.
I suppose, but he came for a question and just got nothing.
He got passed off twice to the crazy lady that would try and eat him, and then he left on a bird, and that was it. So
he didn't even get to ask the third one.
Presumably not, because it doesn't say that he. Let me check again, but I believe. Nope, she just makes the comment and then runs off to sharpen her teeth. So you know what? Fair. I am going to quickly, for your purposes, and then of course our viewers will be able to see if you're watching this on our YouTube version, share my screen to you so you can see, specifically, a depiction from Ivan, And Baba Yaga's a little scary looking in that one.
She looks like she's part tree.
Yeah, I noticed that, and I don't know why. I did some looking real quick while I was getting this up, and apparently Boney Legs is a common epitaph for her. It's something she's commonly referred to as. So yeah, she's just... Those don't look that bony to me, but I guess, you know.
Yeah, no, those look like some pretty thick feet there.
They really do.
Like, they're bigger than his feet, and those legs gotta be thicker than his to hold those up.
Yeah, so it's very interesting, the different depictions. She's got that nose, though. Like, that is extreme. She got the hunchback going on.
I heard one description of Baba Yaga once that said that if she were to lay on the floor, her nose would hit the ceiling.
I did see references towards that. There were also... I'm gonna stop streaming real quick here, so you don't see all my notes, all my secrets. Oftentimes, she is... hold on, let me find my place. Yes, she can apparently sometimes reach out with her boniness from one corner of the hut to the other. She also, I missed this earlier, but now I know, does mention Russian scent of those who visit. She can apparently sense and talk about it. And there it is, her nose may stick to the ceiling, so you're completely right.
So can she sense, like, everybody's background and ethnicity?
I don't know!
She could be making serious money nowadays. Like, imagine that. 23andMe? No.
Baba
Ancestry?
Yaga's.
No.
She sniffs you. That's it. And she can tell. Yeah, Baba Yaga working 23andMe.
3/4 Russian and 1/4 Irish.
I think we have found her true calling, is working as someone who just detects genealogy. There's also the mention there that particular emphasis may be placed by some narrators on the repulsiveness of her nose, breasts, buttocks, and vagina, which seems really rude.
Also, why are the heroes, or whatever you want to call them, going and looking? Like, come on.
I don't know who's looking up Baba Yaga's dress, but that seems... I honestly, at that point, you kind of deserve to be eaten.
Yeah, no, seriously.
Making inappropriate comments, she has every right to eat your ass. And
not only that, but that's a violation of privacy in her hut.
Mm-hmm. You walked into her home in the middle of the woods, which means she didn't want any company. And were very inappropriate. So, let's move on from the folklore and actually hit the pop culture and actually bit of real life section. So I did tease earlier about the real life influence of Baba Yaga's famous chicken-legged cabin. Do you have any, before I tell you, do you have any guesses as to what inspired this? What was the source?
So, like, I don't know, because, like, I want to believe that it's something about, like, hanging chicken legs on a hut or something to, like, protect you from evil spirits. I don't know. I have no clue.
Let me, real quick, share with you a very interesting picture that I will describe in detail for those of you just listening.
What in the...
So, apparently, this
Why are you all the way up there?
This is an interpretation of a construction that happened historically, popular amongst hunter-gatherer nomadic people in Siberia. The cabins were built on top of tall stilts, created with the purpose to preserve supplies against animals during long periods where people would be out and not there.
It's literally a bear-proof storehouse.
It is indeed a bear-proof storehouse. A doorless, windowless log cabin would be built on top of supports made from the stumps of 2 or 3 closely grown together trees cut at the height of 8 to 10 feet. The roots of the trees are said to give the chicken leg appearance, and the only access inside would be a trapdoor in the middle of the floor. I believe this image is probably like a modern recreation for, observational purposes, because it does seem to have a door in the front. And they did note that it would only have a trapdoor. But I find it extremely interesting that that is the original interpretation.
I'm amazed, but also I really want to imagine now that Baba Yaga is, like, tricking out her house with, like, this big porch that she can just walk out on. And,
Oh, yeah. For sure. But it's an amazing detail that I didn't know about, and I absolutely loved learning about. And I was very excited to share because it's really cool. And you can see where those roots and things at the bottom would give you the impression of feet on this house.
They really do look like little chicken legs.
Yeah, it's really neat. So,
and also it comes with way less harm towards chickens than my idea.
You know, it does, because it would require a lot of chicken legs to dangle them from a hut to give that impression. So now for our pop culture portion. As you would expect, Baba Yaga is absolutely everywhere in pop culture. As one would imagine, with her being so prevalent. And I don't have time to hit every single example. But as usual, and as I did in the past, I'm going to touch on a few that I can personally speak on because I'm familiar with them and know about them. So our first is, just for our nerdy-ass purposes, Baba Yaga appears as a figure in earlier editions of Dungeons & Dragons. Specifically, I believe, 4th, 3rd, and 1st edition. I believe she was not in 1st or 5th.
You mean 2nd? You said 1st before.
Yes, I'm sorry. 2nd and 5th. Yeah, I can count. I think.
1, 7, 12?
Yeah. Interestingly, however, while she has not made a reemergence in the current 5th edition that we're in for Dungeons & Dragons, a pretty obviously inspired version of her appears in the campaign Curse of Strahd under the name Baba Lysaga.
That's right.
Yes, which is not even subtle, let's be perfectly honest. And she has the same house. She's, it's like a chicken-legged house, or I think it might be like crow-legged. Regardless, it's a house on legs. She's specifically a figure that your party can encounter, and she's a bit of a bitch to fight. The first time I ever DM'd Curse of Strahd with Dan and Adam, they almost got their asses kicked by her in that house, and I believe she got defeated because they took a Vorpal sword to her house, and while it didn't behead her house, it did crit and do, an insane amount of damage to allow them to not get murdered.
Because you've belegged my house.
Yeah, it was bad. I mean, they almost got. So, yeah, Baba Yaga herself actually does just flat out appear, but Baba Lysaga is the 5th edition, obviously heavily inspired. Yeah, the counterpart. You know how they like to do sometimes. We have another version of Baba Yaga appearing in the video game Castlevania Lords of Shadow, one of the more recent additions to the series, and one of the only 2 that I've actually played, which doesn't say a lot about me as somebody who actually enjoys Castlevania's lore. As far as I can tell, she has not appeared in games before that, but she appears as a hag who Gabriel Belmont, the protagonist of that particular game, contacts in order to enter the land of necromancers. So roughly 2/3 of the way through the game, if I can remember. I might be wrong about that. I actually do have an image of her, and as you can tell, it's a pretty traditional version of her, I would say, for a video game.
With some added skulls.
Yeah, she's got some skulls, and she's got this, backpack and a cane, but, yeah, she's about what you would expect. Another version of Baba Yaga also appears in the comic book series Hellboy, which I'm not as familiar with, but I at least have heard of it, so I decided to throw it in there. Never personally seen, but apparently she does also exist in the 2019 movie version that I believe everyone hated. I never saw it, so I don't know.
As a Hellboy fan, let me jump in here.
Please do so. That's also why I included it, because I'm pretty sure you did know.
Yeah, so as a Hellboy fan, yes. Baba Yaga has made multiple deals with Hellboy in the past, which he usually ends up breaking. It's a lot of fun to watch him fuck her over. In the movie, she does appear. It's not a great movie. The action scenes are kind of fun, but nothing about the movie makes any sense. And there's a weird, gross kissing scene where she just kisses Hellboy, and it's not.
Wait,
great.
Baba Yaga kisses Hellboy?
With tongue.
Oh no!
It's not consensual.
I hope not, or I was going to question Hellboy's choices here. Good to know. That's part of why I included it also, because
I mean, to be fair, he's trying to get with Morgan Le Fay the whole movie, so...
You know what?
Or not technically Morgan Le Fay, but Morgan Le Fay.
Fair enough. Of course, I had to include it because of our very deep familiarity, but Baba Yaga has appeared in the MOBA game Smite, one that we are huge fans of. And this is a pretty classic representation of her, classic for Smite. From the mortar and pestle that she rides around in, she's got her chicken-legged house, which is part of her ult. I'm going to share this time, so we can actually have a brief video. I don't know if that's stream actually. Can you see anything other than a black screen?
I can see it.
Okay, it's a black screen on my preview, but that's fine.
Beautiful.
So we of course have her here, a pretty traditional version. She's got the hag look. She's got her house looming in the horizon.
A few extra witchy features too, with her actually brewing potions and whatnot during the course.
It's
of the game.
true. Which is, one of her abilities involves her brewing potions. We still don't know in Smite lore what the hell she's doing. She's kind of just hanging out.
She's just another one of the chaosy sort of gods in that game.
Yeah. They keep showing her now in the new trailers, and she's still not done anything yet.
She really hasn't interacted with the lore at all.
And in Tiamat's reveal, this is off topic, but it's fine. In Tiamat's reveal, she's still there. Just hanging out in the woods. So.
She's still not doing shit.
It's fine. And our final one is one of, personally my first, big exposures to Baba Yaga that I can remember. I'm sure I'd heard her name before. But it was a version in Rise of the Tomb Raider, which is a sequel to the rebooted Tomb Raider series, which I'm a huge fan of all three of those games that came out. But she appears in a very particular way that I found very interesting in a series of DLC missions. In this, an old woman is utilizing hallucinogenic flowers to mimic the legends of the witch and convince invaders, including the heroine, Lara Croft, that the myth is real. It's very, very interesting to see someone using the folklore like that. The real Baba Yaga's not there. It's a hallucination. But she plays on those fears that people already had.
Would you mind, really quick, if I pointed out 2 more uses of Baba Yaga?
Oh, please do. Please do, because as I said, there are dozens and dozens of them.
2 more of my favorites actually come from Ant-Man 2, where Ghost is referred to as Baba Yaga by one of these side characters throughout the movie.
Yes, I meant to bring this up. Yeah, there is the, I believe he's of Russian descent, and he keeps referring to her as basically a boogeyman.
As a boogeyman, yeah.
Yeah.
Also, in a very similar way, in John Wick, he is referred to as Baba Yaga, which makes no sense, and it's really stupid throughout that movie, because he doesn't do anything boogeyman-esque.
He just shows up and kills people. I saw that one mentioned, and I didn't bring it up solely because I've never seen John Wick. But that's kind of amazing. I'm glad you were able to bring that one up, because that's just so weird that at that point they're like, that sounds cool.
It just kind of shows that her name has kind of become synonymous with that boogeyman or bogeyman sort of character.
Yeah, she's a thing to be afraid of that just kind of shows up. Even though typically in her myths you have to seek her out, but more often than not, I feel like a lot of the other versions of her, like those examples, people fear her as just coming for them. But other than that, that is all I have on our witchy figure known as Baba Yaga. A very interesting one. Do you have any final wrap-up thoughts, or what you're thinking about with our good old lady friend here?
I really want to know what other mythological figures could possibly tie into her, especially from our Slavic folklore.
Yeah,
I feel like characters like the Leshy should be able to, have stories with her.
There are references to her inspirations coming from older figures like Hecate, or at least older as far as how mythological stuff usually lines up. I really don't know which origin would be first. So the goddess of magic in Greek mythology. There's a couple others as well. And then, I feel like she has to have interactions with figures in Slavic folklore, too. I just really don't know what they are.
Well, maybe we can find that out as we research some other Slavic monsters then too.
It is a folklore I am not terribly familiar with, but that I'm very interested to keep looking into, because it's got some very cool and unique things to it. So we'll definitely have to put that down for some future episodes. But as far as this episode goes, thank you everybody for joining us. As per usual, if you have any suggestions or comments that you would like to throw our way about creatures, myths, cryptids, whatever you might want to see us discuss and teach each other about, let us know.